Welcome in to the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I am Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. Say my name three times. Magic happens. And we have a great discussion of the Tennessee Titans. I'm brought to you by ZEN Sports. We will talk about them more as things get rolling. I am at the headquarters of Sinkers, which is the proud sponsor of the football show on Mondays, where I appear with Braden Gall. I'm happy to be here in this fine event space. And if you want me to be in your event space on Thursday afternoons, I am available if you are in range of the Tennessee Titans headquarters, because I sneak out here between coordinators' availability and the Titans locker room. So I've heard from the coordinators earlier today, and I will be back to be in the locker room. So we're going to talk about how the Titans cannot lose to Malik Willis today. We're going to talk about waiting on Deandre Hopkins to become himself, tight ends on the bench. Narveson could be the bigger former Titan in this game than Willis, and much more. I'm pleased that you're here. Thanks for joining me. Let's get to work. Malik Willis is not a good quarterback. I don't care what he did to help the Packers beat a bad Colts team, and maybe he does it again and they beat a bad Titans team. But we've got to stop with this thing. Look, it'll be a disaster if he comes here and wins at Nissan Stadium. But we got to stop with this portion of the population that watched that game last week or didn't watch that game last week and said, see, look, Malik Willis went to the Packers and he won a game. And this season, Will Levis hasn't won a game, so the Titans got rid of the wrong quarterback. Give me a break on that. First off, let's listen to Brian Callahan talk, I think somewhat begrudgingly, though he put on a happy face, about Malik Willis and maybe if the Titans could have used Malik Willis if they had to in a way similar to how the Packers used him against the Colts.
Definitely some things that they did with him that we did elements of as he was here. But yeah, they've opened up some things that they probably don't do a lot of with Jordan Love, but that Malik has a unique skill set for. And I thought it was really well designed with the quarterback runs, the RPOs, all the motions and the different styles of runs. It was very, very well designed. I did not. I know Bo and Nick both have. They both wished him luck before his first start, and happy for him that he had a chance to go play. That was pretty cool to see. I mean, everyone knows Malik. Malik's a phenomenal person. Loved being around him, loved having him here. And he went to Green Bay for the opportunity that he's been given now is to play. And he's done a nice job of it.
So a couple Titans coaches talked to him, texted with him, or had phone calls with him after the Titans traded him for a 7th-round pick. Look, good job for Malik Willis to get that win. Nick Suss, earlier today on a football show with Braden, said that Mason Rudolph, in a little scrum with reporters that I wasn't a part of, said that Willis is one of the fastest learners he's been around, or something like that. Come on. Do I believe that? I mean, I think Mason Rudolph is a good quote, honest guy, all of that. But if he's that fast of a learner, there's a reason they threw the ball only 14 times and ran it, 50 times? They didn't do that because Malik Willis is a super fast learner. Malik Willis has physical skills. So if Malik Willis has physical skills and is this lightning fast learner, then he should have been able to come in for the Packers and run Jordan Love's offense or some semblance of it. He ran a super dumbed down offense, and he's going to run a super dumbed down offense again here Sunday. And we're going to see Josh Jacobs try to carry Green Bay to a win at Nissan Stadium. If, by the way, he leads Green Bay to a win at Nissan Stadium, and I joke about pitchforks and torches all of the time, we may actually see pitchforks and torches. It'd be a miserable result for the Titans, as bad of a regular season result without playoff consequences as there's been in a long time. because Malik Willis is not good. He's not. Now, it would be a hell of a coaching job by Matt LaFleur. If he gets 2 wins out of Malik Willis in 2 weeks, he should be at the top of the early contenders for coach of the year, period. And I like Matt LaFleur a great deal. He got himself into a great situation there, obviously. But now the transition with Jordan Love and using a substitute quarterback successfully and all of that. But there's no way Malik Willis is one of the fastest learner. Well, I mean, maybe Mason Rudolph's been around a lot of dumb quarterbacks. That could be part of it. But I can't fathom this compliment from Malik Willis. And I don't begrudge Malik Willis. I'm happy he's somewhere where he can do better. But it's a bad draft pick by the Titans to trade a pick to get in range of Malik Willis in the 3rd round for a project quarterback when they had so many other needs. And we're talking about depth problems for the Titans. Terrible. Now, this game's going to boil down to how the Titans defend Josh Jacobs in a lot of ways. And the Titans are pretty stout up the middle. You're not going to run against Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat. The Titans have given up really 4 big runs. I think Easton Freeze put out a clip of the 4 big runs against the Titans, all to the outside. You'll remember the touchdown run from the Jets, untouched. Jeffrey Simmons had a dive at him in the middle, but he ultimately headed around the right corner and into the end zone pretty much untouched, right? The 4 big runs of the Titans have come to the corner. And guess what? Josh Jacobs, 36% of his carries have been around right end. 29% of his yards have come around right end. 42% of his first downs have come around right end. 44% of the missed tackles he's caused have come around right end to the outside right. Now, sometimes Landry and Joseph Day will be there to the strong side. Sometimes Arden Key will be there. But the fact of the matter is the Titans are light in that spot, light in terms of the people they have to play the spot, light in terms of the people who play the spot in terms of their weight. And they're not particularly good at setting the edge. This is one of the weaknesses that they have. Now, they haven't gotten gashed, but they also haven't faced Green Bay, who's hell-bent on getting him out there and have had success with it. So let's hear first from Jeffrey Simmons about Green Bay's running game.
Yeah, it wasn't too many different ones. I mean, like I said, they have design runs. We saw in the red zone. They had a draw from Malik, and even with the type of run they runs, especially this offense, we haven't faced, in the first 2 games, we haven't faced a team who do this much gap scheme runs with a lot of the pulls, the guard pulls and tackle pulls and stuff in that nature. So, like I said, it's different looks, but it's really they get back to the same exact runs. They try to spread you out or they try to get in a different formation. But at the end of the day, it's about the exact same run. That's what I look at as a defensive lineman. What type of runs are they running? And it's really the same runs. It's just in a different formation.
So they're going to spread them out. They're going to try to hit them with the same runs. How disciplined can the Titans be? How effective can they be? They're going to get people moving laterally. They're going to test those edge setting guys. And then they're going to have Murray and Jones moving more laterally than downhill. Well, I think Jones has been great and Murray's been good, but this is a different kind of test. Here is Denard Wilson on the troubles the Titans have had setting the edge and how they intend to be better at that. Sorry, JT, springing you on these quickly. Or maybe you don't have that one.
Not in terms of like a sports psychologist, no. I've thought about it. Maybe if I wanted to connect with someone or do stuff with people that I have in the past. But I think my mind is in a healthy enough spot to move on, but it might be something that I'll incorporate in the future for sure.
Well, that was a change of topic there. We'll go with Will Levis talking about not seeing a sports psychologist. Somebody took huge offense to me asking that question. I accused the guy of being a caveman. Sports psychology is very, very, very popular. a lot of the top athletes in the NFL, in the NBA, MLB, hockey, go to sports psychologists frequently. It's an offering that teams make to guys, and it's an important feature. There'd be no shame, absolutely, if Levis went to one. And he talked about needing to rewire his brain to get away from that. And so I don't see, why he wouldn't head that direction. If he hasn't, and it sounds like he's not ready to, but if his problems continue along those, along the route that he's had, he should consider that. It's something that certainly could help him. And I think he will, or he'll be encouraged to go that direction if in fact he needs it. JT, do we have the Deandre Wilson? If we have the Deandre Wilson, let's hit that. And
That's been a huge emphasis on us for us this week is setting the edge. Being balanced, setting the edge, and we like to talk about setting the edge in between the midpoint. So in between the numbers and the hash, make the team run into a phone booth. And the guys, they understand that that's our thought process this week, and those are the plays that's been hurting us, and we got to go out there and put it into it.
I mean, I think that's one of the big stories of this game. Are they going to be able to do that effectively? Yes or no? Somebody mentioned Arden Key in the comments here. He's a guy who's not particularly good at it. He's not particularly built for it, and I suspect he got off. Here's Robert asking, where's Arden Key been? Vacation. We all jumped for joy when his suspension was overturned. Well, he jumped for joy when his suspension was overturned because after Arden Key is even worse, less experienced options. And the funny thing is, it's not like he's invisible. He's all over the screen, Arden Key. He's all over the screen. He's just not doing anything, right? I see him. I see him there. I just see him not doing a lot. But he's certainly a guy I would think they would try to attack because he does not set the edge very well. And he's been super ineffective. But again, I would say about this defense, which is quite good overall, to come from where it came last year and to have Arden Key be the biggest concern in the starting lineup is pretty good. It's pretty good. Let's I'll come over here to take a couple questions and we'll dive back into some of these other issues I have. G says it would be the darkest of Mondays if we lost to Malik. They'll ignore how much better the Packers roster is and spin it as Malik is better than Levis, really hoping we win. The fact of the matter is, Green Bay is a lot better, and Green Bay has a good defense, but the Titans have a good defense too. And Will Levis, if he plays as he's capable of playing without a killer mistake, the Titans, if they score their 17, should win this game 17-13 or something like that, because the Titans defense should be able to handle the run well enough and handle Malik Willis well enough, and Narveson is not the kicker that Nick Folk is in terms of consistently hitting his field goal attempts. All of these things say that the Titans should win this game, and that if, in order for them to lose this game, they will have to make mistakes again, which leads to Dixie saying, why is anyone skeptical Green Bay can't do the same thing to the Titans? And I would add that the Titans do the same thing to themselves. I am a believer that, you have to show me you can do something before I'm going to predict that you can do it. The Titans may tighten up in the wrong way in this game if things are going down a bad track. But they've got two backup quarterbacks in a row coming to them now. I think, regression to the mean. They're due for a little bit of that after two losses that were very, they deserve to lose them, but they're unfortunate in a lot of ways. I'm not going to be surprised if they lose this game by any means, but I feel like they should win it. And I'll understand the discontent if they fail to win it. Hey, let's retweet this. If you're watching on Twitter, point people to it. If you're on YouTube, and however you're listening or watching to it, let's like it. Let's subscribe. Let's give it a thumbs up. Let's rate it. Let's review it. All of those things help the cause. You also need to subscribe to paulkuharsky.com. It had a piece this week about Brian Callahan and how people should not change him based on his yelling at his quarterback coming to the sideline and his openness at press conferences. Blake Bedingfield's going to preview the Green Bay game from a technical standpoint tomorrow. Mike Herndon gave you an excellent film review. I spoke today to Chad Brinker, and we'll have a piece later today for members only with his thoughts on the start of this season with the 0-2 start. And down the road, you'll get a very detailed piece about the Titans' analytics approach with great detail from Chad Brinker. All of these things for members only, as are phone calls on this podcast, voicemails. And we've got one from Sabine, who's got a question and a good one about the new kickoff format for the NFL, which is not working well at all, which led to her question. Here she is.
Question from Sabine. I don't really want to talk about either of these two games, but I have a question about the new kickoff rule. Through 2 weeks, it seems like a lot of teams are pretty content to just kick the ball into the end zone and let the offense put the ball at 30. Do you think the NFL is happy with what we've seen through 2 weeks? I feel like this media all offseason was talking about how instant kickoffs would be with the rule change, and so far they've been pretty typical. Wondering if you think the post will change as the season goes on, or it's just going to be, instead of 25 now it's 30. All right. Well, hopefully next week against Willis is better. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, it is going to just be touchbacks to the 30 because the average return gets you to the 27 or the 28. And coaches are willing to give up that 2 or 3 yards in exchange for not taking the risk that somebody's going to bust a big return against them. There had been talk, and some coaches and GMs were urging the league to turn the touchback of a kick into the end zone into the 35, because if you had to give up 7 or 8 yards in exchange for that risk of a return, most coaches would not kick the ball into the end zone and give it up at the 35. And they should have done that, but they resisted doing it because they're wimps and they don't want to over tinker with something that they've installed. So I would bet that next year, after a year of people taking a lot of touchbacks at the 30, that they will move the end zone touchback to the 35. And then people are not going to be willing to give up 7 or 8 yards from the average return to the touchback spot. And we'll see teams kicking the ball to force returns. And then we'll see if we get some exciting returns, or at least it'll be a play, which is what they want. They want it to be a play without hard contact, so the return zone or the coverage zone reduces the big runs down for big hits. But I think it's been a fail, Sabine. I do, and I think you're right. She also asked me if Tua's head damage that landed him on IR, so he's going to miss at least 4 games now as he recovers from another concussion, if she thought that might prompt Will Levis to slide, something that he has a lot of trouble doing, even when he's 3 yards past the marker, like he was in Chicago, and goes airborne instead of sliding feet first. He showed us a big raspberry on the front of his calf yesterday when he was talking. And he said, this is why I don't slide. But it was kind of like I didn't remember until the last second and I just went down. Yeah, I guess I can work on the technique a little bit, but it was nice not taking those hits. So he got down more safely, but still not without the slide. I think it's symbolic of his inability to change things, that he can't change the sliding thing, which is an easy thing to change. These other things are harder to change. And I don't know where we should get our faith that he's going to change those things when he's unable to change something this basic. Trevor Goforth asks, any chance we're robbed of the Malik Levis showdown? Report of Jordan Love practicing today in pads. Think they're trying to get him back out there this Sunday. I think it's absolute gamesmanship. Sprained MCL back that quickly would be quite the medical marvel. I think it's all about trying to keep the Titans on their toes. They play Minnesota, I believe, next week. If he's close on that one, certainly they'd like him back for a crucial division game. But I do not think we're going to see Love. I would expect he'll probably be listed as questionable on Friday and downgraded to doubtful on Saturday, like he was last week. People don't come back from that injury on that timetable. Let's talk about the offensive line. The offensive line played poorly it's played poorly all season. They're allowing 53% pressure rate on Will Levis, entirely too high, right? Hard way for him to survive. And the first game, the problem was really on the left side. Latham and Skoronski particularly struggled. Second game, at least the problem was where you think it should be, on the right side with Radens, and particularly Nicholas Petit-Frere. Petit-Frere gave up 9 pressures, not 13 or whatever we saw. But Brian Callahan talked this week, and I wrote a piece about this, that to fix the offensive line problems, they need actual game reps. But you can't wait on the actual game reps for improvement. You can't get your quarterback killed, and you can't have your offense completely out of sync while you're getting the experience you need to fix things. So there's this balance between being patient while they get the game reps, but having this urgent need for improvement. He also talked, so we'll go to that clip in a second. He also talked about how there's no shame, and Nick Holes talked about this today. There's no shame in helping your offensive tackles. And I think a lot of us think about, the shame in that. You want to have a premier left tackle who does not need help. But the level of pass rushers has gotten better and better and better. And look, you do what you need to do to protect your quarterback. So if they've got to protect in that fashion, then so be it. Here's Callahan on the offensive line needing game reps.
Yeah, I think all growth and improvement takes time. There's certain things that might be more natural than others for certain guys. It sort of varies player to player. And I think that those things come with actual game reps. You can do as much as you want in practice. You can simulate it. You play against your own team. But there's different styles and different body types and different rush counters. And there's a lot of things that go on. And for those guys, it's just banking of reps. Obviously you don't have forever to make improvement, but there does take some growth. There is some uniqueness to it and some technicalities that only improve as you get more shots at it. There's an element of that. There's an element of patience. There's an element of we got to get better fast. There's some urgency to get better, and I think that's the most important point. Is that the urgency to improve quickly is what makes teams in the NFL. If you can get better quickly, you can make improvements, make corrections, and not repeat mistakes. You're going to have a pretty good chance to improve at a rate that's going to give you a competitive advantage. But we need to improve certainly. There's a patience part, but there's also an urgency part where things got to get better quickly.
Patience and urgency, but those are concepts that butt heads here. And, I think it's really hard for media and really hard for fans to to come to terms with those two things happening simultaneously. And then you've got the Nick Petit-Frere story this week. You know, is it a hard line, wrong thing? No. Is it really stupid what he did? So he's got a role as a advisor, correspondent, whatever, for Fantasy Life, for Matthew Berry's fantasy site. First off, I don't know who else is doing this for Matthew Berry from around the NFL, but it doesn't seem like there are a big stable of guys. I don't know. So Nick clearly has an interest in doing this, which is fine. But I would think that Matthew Berry could get bigger draws than Nick Petit-Frere. Like Nick Petit-Frere would be 200th on the list of guys you want. You'd want skill position players. But for him to do this, which is fantasy sports is not gambling, but it is a money-making NFL-related thing. So it is in the same genre, if you will. And here's a guy that had a gambling suspension last year. And then it comes out, Callahan said correctly, like, hey, he didn't know the timing of when it was going to be announced. I'm sure that it would coincide with him coming off a particularly bad game. And sure, I think we could all agree that that's very likely the case. But the optics of the whole thing are very poor for Nicholas Petit-Frere to have tweets coming out about his role with this fantasy site, having had a gambling suspension and playing incredibly poorly. All of that tied up in a bow looks really poor, looks really bad. He wasn't at his locker yesterday. We'll be in the area today looking for him again. Nicholas Petit-Frere has a way, comes across well. He's a good conversationalist, if you will. He seems like he's thoughtful as he talks, but it's a second or third time where he's shown himself not to be acting in a thoughtful manner. And his failure to do so, dents that whole offensive line, dents that whole offense, dents the Titans to a degree. I don't think that he informed anybody with the Titans that this was happening. And again, it's not like they could have told him not to do it or have that authority to stop him from doing what he wants to do. But it's a bad look. And it's, it's not a distraction necessarily, but it's not a well thought through decision. And the Titans need guys who are thinking things through. They need to be a smart football team. And this is an indication of a guy who's not being smart. The optics count a lot, and this is not good optics. Let's put it simply like that. I'm curious to see what he says, if there's any remorse or regret for the optics, just for the optics, and we'll see what he says. But I don't know. I don't know what to say with regard to NPF's decision-making in terms of how he's blocking and in terms of what his thinking is here. It's just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. I'm at Sinkers headquarters here, the proud sponsor of a football show on Mondays that I do with Braden Gall. They're very good to us over there, and they're kind to let me use this event space, which they like to have used as an event space. So if you're curious about using it for something that you want to do, reach out and see what kind of arrangements can be made. I'm looking for an event space somewhere in general vicinity of Metro Center. This is downtown and not hard for me to get to. I do my podcasts here on Thursdays, 1:00 between two segments of the Titans days. So if you're interested in hosting something like that or sponsoring Sunday night's podcast, which is now one of my biggest growing properties, I'd love to hear from you. So reach out on that. I am sponsored in this podcast by ZEN Sports, which is a great app to download and a place to bet. There are some really good bets this week. First off, at ZEN Sports, what you need to do is download it and open your account using the code TNPAUL. That's TNPAUL. If you bet as little as $10 after you do that, you get a free year membership to paulkuharsky.com, which is quite a deal and quite a value. But you could bet more than $10 with that first bet because they've got a no danger first wager. And with that, you bet anything plus 500 or less, and you're either in the money with a big win or within 24 hours, you get your money back. So that is a great entrance into ZEN Sports. And there are some good bets to be made. I don't bet on the Titans, but if I did, I'd be looking at what I see is the under on this Titans-Packers game of 37.5. I'd also be looking at an under in San Francisco and Los Angeles of 46.5. San Francisco without McCaffrey, without Deebo Samuel, and LA without Cooper Kupp, without Nakua, and without a couple of offensive linemen, two beat-up offenses. I don't see a lot of scoring. The Titans, Bart says, are 2-0 to the under this season already. I'm not expecting an offensive outburst this weekend. I don't know about you. Go to ZEN Sports, check it out, sign up using TN Paul. Check out those bets and many other possibilities. They are really good to me. Let's all be good to them. And I thank them for their faithfulness. Check it out. Let's see what some of you are talking about here. Robert Studdard, of all the new free agent acquisitions, who is the best interview and the worst? Of all the new free agent acquisitions, who is the best interview and the worst? Cheeto Awuzie is a very good interview. I'm going to forget somebody here without having a list in front of me of who the guys are. I like Cheeto a lot. I think he's a good talker. The worst, I don't want to insult anybody. I mean, Tony Pollard is a hell of a player, but he is not a great interview. Lloyd Cushenberry is good on precise topics, but he's not somebody you have to talk to. Calvin Ridley is pretty good. It's in a bad mood where he doesn't really want to do it once in a while, but he's been really solid lately. He's not somebody you want to miss. So those are my answers to that on the top of my head. Trey asks, why would active players want to be involved in this fantasy thing? I mean, I think some skill position players would talk trash about why they need to be in your lineup and maybe, their friends and their frenemies and stuff like that. I don't know why I want to hear from an offensive lineman, maybe about running backs, but I don't know what they would offer me about receivers and defenses. I don't really get what value Nicholas Petit-Frere adds to Matthew Berry. So I'm curious as we see this, what comes out of it. So we shall see on that front. Sam wants to know, how many poor performances does NPF get? We're really NPF heavy here before they give Duncan or Ojukwu a chance. I mean, I think he's going to get a pretty good run before they make a change. I think Duncan and Ojukwu are both pretty bad as well. So, it's one thing to not like a performance of a guy and think you can do better. It's another thing to have guys who can do better. And I don't think Ojukwu or Duncan are options that are going to give them much better. Ojukwu had a lot of time to win them over in the spring and in the early summer before Petit-Frere was back from his knee injury, after he was back from his shoulder injury, and did not seize the moment at all, and tumbled. And I think Duncan is particularly raw, but one or both of them may get their chance at some point. I think right now it's a matter of giving Bill Callahan time to continue to refine what somebody like NPF is doing. And again, Brian Callahan's emphasizing the idea that these guys need game reps. And I think the more game reps they get, the more that Bill Callahan has to show them and work with them on, hey, you need to look at this, fix this. Here's how we fix it. Take this into the next game.
Yeah, I thought everything that Will's improvement from week 1 to week 2 to me was noticeable. Everything about how he moved in the pocket, where he had his eyes, just everything about playing the position was better in week 2. I think offensively as a whole, there's a lot of things that were better from week 1 to week 2. We got to get a lot better between week 2 and week 3. And that's just that's the nature of the NFL, especially in the early part of the season. It's how quickly you can improve your team and what you do well. I'm really pleased with how he played for the most part, and that didn't change after we watched the tape. And every week you're going to go through with a quarterback, and there's going to be a handful of plays that you could say, hey, what if you could have gone here or here? Here's some things that could have been different. So that's a normal process, whether you throw for 350 yards or 150 yards. That doesn't change. So that part is pretty consistent. But I thought that Will made a really nice improvement from week 1 to week 2.
I think the win for Levis in the next game is no bonehead plays, right? If he makes no bonehead plays and he doesn't turn the ball over, that's the most significant improvement, right? I don't. Yes, the second interception or the second turnover, the interception was on Burks, but he's got to come out of a game with a clean sheet. And if he can do that, that's a drastic improvement over the first 2 weeks. You don't want to see him do anything dumb. That seems like it would be a dramatic jump for Will Levis. And if he can do that, win or lose, we'll be talking about him really having made some progress. And if he really makes that kind of progress, I think everybody can feel encouraged about him. And then, the offensive line conversation will be bigger, and things like that. I want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins also. He's not been himself. There's some videos out of him not really running particularly well. A couple on plays that aren't necessarily going to feature him. There's a lot of conversation with Callahan and today with Nick Holes about him not being, is he primary? Isn't he primary? How do they get the ball to him? My biggest concern here is that, I have two, that they don't have a security blanket for Will Levis. This goes all the way back to McNair and Wycheck. McNair was a quarterback that often struggled to get into a rhythm. And Levis certainly is struggling to get in a rhythm with these 3 and outs early. And I think when a quarterback struggles to get in a rhythm, it was successful for McNair when they had him just, hey, let's get some easy throws to Wycheck here, and it gets you going. It gets a couple of first downs. It gets the team moving, and it gets everybody feeling like, okay, we've got something here. We can do this, and it loosened McNair up. And there's nobody that qualifies as that for Levis yet. Hopkins is not himself. And they insist he's trending in the right direction and everything. His snaps doubled, I think, from 17 to 30 from week 1 to week 2. And there was no big difference in production. He caught 1 ball in week 1. He caught 1 ball in week 2, and he doesn't look threatening or effective. I feel like his knee is going to be a long-term issue. I'm worried about it. And I think in the meantime, you got to get somebody going. Now, I've been told, he looks much better this week, and they're really encouraged about the directions it's going. So maybe those 2 games were blips, and he's back this week, and they do a better job of calling stuff for him. And first reads open more often, and all of these good things happen. But if not, I'm actually kind of wondering about NWI. I think Burks has played too much. I think Burks is incredibly ineffective. And NWI seems to me like a guy can give you some easy underneath catches and help get a quarterback in rhythm. So I'd like to see some more of him if things are going the way they go. Here's the offensive coordinator, Nick Holes, on Hopkins and what's been going on as they try to figure out Hopkins as a coaching staff.
Well, we're a progression-based offense. So we always want to start. We always give them a starting point. And we have a lot of formations, and so we do it that way. I would say Chicago, he had practiced. We didn't know how much he was going to be able to go. We really practiced a little bit on Wednesday, practiced some on Thursday, practiced Friday, and then was really Friday afternoon. His knee was like, all right, I'm good to go. So it's hard to get him. He had missed all of training camp for the most part. So then last week we doubled his snap count, right? So he went from 15, I think, in the first game to 29 or 30 last game. And then there were ones where he was the primary. And like you're saying with progressions, there's sometimes Will didn't get all the way through it and where he got to him. And then there's other ones where maybe we eliminated him too fast. So I think it's just kind of the passing game's all about timing, kind of repetition. And now that he's been out there for a couple of weeks and his play count is going up, then I think it'll just kind of, we think it'll happen naturally, but we're also going to be intentful about it too. So
I hope that's the case. Louis says that Boyd needs to be the resource for Will. And I don't think that's the case. First off, Boyd needs to face zone instead of man, and you can't dictate what you get. You have to wait and see what you get. So I wouldn't say that at all. And Sam says, how are we still falling back to NWI in 2025? God help us. I'm just saying as a temporary thing and maybe early to get something going. It'd be fine if it was Chig or Wiley also, but they've got 3 wide on the field 81 point something % of the time in the last game. And if you're that 3 wide heavy, then it needs to be a wide receiver. Maybe go a little bit more too tight and take some snaps away from Burks. I'd be in favor of that. Take some snaps away from Hopkins. If he's gimpy like this, I'd be great. Nick says he thinks the Burks' efforts will diminish greatly over the next 2 games if he continues to be ineffective and inefficient. You're talking Burks' physical effort, or you're talking the efforts to make something work with Burks? I don't know which way you're headed there. When's Burks getting traded? Rashid says. Why does Burks have value? Burks was thrown 1 ball to high point it, which is supposed to be his strength. He couldn't do it. He's 225. He let a 179-pound guy take the ball away from him. What team in the league is looking at that and saying, I've got to trade for that guy? Stop saying that people should trade for the Titans' bad players. It's not happening. He's close to a bust. He's at the most a backup. It's not trading season. All of this trade talk is foolishness. I've got one more call on here. Ed wants to talk about Will Levis and Will Levis, the potential for Will Levis not to pan out and to bust, and the value the Titans would have given up for him. Let's hear this call, the voicemail from Ed.
Good morning, Paul. This is Ed. I need your help in trying to rationalize in my head this narrative that's going around that it's okay or it's better that, if Levis fails, well, we didn't spend a first-round pick on him. We only spent a second-round pick on him. Help me understand that. Help me understand why when any quarterback fails in a franchise, isn't it catastrophic for that franchise? I mean, isn't it a complete rebuild? And isn't it more important to be worried about the future picks or future money I have to invest in a quarterback rather than worry about whether I spent a first or second round pick? I just don't understand the narrative, and I need help understanding it. I appreciate it. Thanks, Paul.
Well, I haven't heard a lot of this narrative, but it's better to bust on a second-round quarterback than it is to bust on a first-round quarterback. The Titans have Peter Skoronski. Now, he doesn't look as good as he should look, but he's still got a chance to turn into a player, and he's a starting caliber player. Now, they will have given up a second and a third. If Levis busts, they blew a second and a third. It's better than blowing a first. The money stuff's not a concern. The big thing if Levis busts is they will have lost time. They will have lost half a season last year. They will have lost this season. They will probably lose at least part of next season when he probably starts ahead of a new draft pick. But I think it's probably more likely than not that he's the starter at the beginning of next season, no matter what happens. But yeah, the big loss is you lose time. So you will have wasted this time where you try to find out if he's the guy, if he proves not to be the guy. And then you have to search again and restart. And then you run the risk of your next guy not being the guy. But it's the way the NFL works. If you don't have the guy, you're constantly looking for the guy. And they need 7, 8, 9 draft picks a year to get this roster to where it needs to be in terms of depth. And if you're trying to get a top quarterback and you need to trade up into the top 5 to get him, if you're not there naturally, then you're giving up draft picks and you're maybe giving up future draft picks. And so it's going to cost you. That's why it'd be great if you could hit on a second-round quarterback and have a first-rounder in Peter Skoronski. What would be ideal is if you hit a home run with the 11th pick when you drafted Skoronski or whoever you draft with that pick, and then hit on a second-round quarterback. Well, they haven't hit on a drafted quarterback in quite some time. And so a restart would absolutely suck for the franchise. And it's a catastrophe for any franchise that doesn't get a quarterback right, which is a decent percentage of the league. If you look at all the teams that aren't going to make the playoffs this year, most of them have a quarterback question. Trey points out here that wasting a third on a Malik was bad, and that wasted a third on Malik and a fourth, if I'm not mistaken, to trade up to get Malik. So if Levis busts, you will have wasted a third and a fourth on Malik, getting a 7th back, and a second and a third that you needed to use to get Levis. 4 picks for 2 quarterbacks who are not the answer on a team that has very little depth. So, that will be really bad for the franchise. I don't know what narrative you're hearing that says it isn't really bad, but I think it's less bad than having had a first-round bust, especially a first-round bust that you trade up to draft. Look at what's going on in Carolina. Carolina gave up the moon to go get Bryce Young. I don't know if Bryce Young is done in Carolina, but he's on the shelf right now, and he's heading towards done. I didn't particularly like Bryce Young coming out. And I know there are exceptions who have been short and had success in the league. But this guy is so short and so slight, I have trouble picturing him being a success. Now, if he's put in a perfect situation, he's got a chance. But it's hard for a guy like that to get put in a perfect situation. Most guys don't wind up in a perfect situation. Sam says, here's a depressingly terrible idea. If you remove McNair from the equation, who's the best quarterback the Titans have drafted? Cole McDonald. Kidding. Who is the best quarterback the Titans have drafted? I mean, it's probably, am I forgetting somebody? It's probably Vince Young, as hard as that is to say. And that's the best of a very bad lot. And Vince Young was a bad quarterback. So, I mean, we know what we're saying when we say Vince Young. Robert says Drew Brees is really the only short quarterback exception. Kyler Murray's playing some good quarterback. Russell Wilson played some very good quarterback. Those are short guys who have had success. Vince Young, I think Vince Young's best was better than Mariota's best, wouldn't we say? So there are a lot of things to consider there. Arch Manning, Rashid says Arch Manning in 2026 is the best quarterback the Titans have drafted, which is somewhat humorous. Mariota, I don't know. You can make that. Rusty's asking me about Mike Lombardi's opinion on Levis. I haven't heard it, and I don't particularly care about national analysts' opinions about a guy they're seeing on film only and haven't dealt with on from any close proximity. 30,000-foot views are interesting, particularly when you have a ground view and can pull back to a 30,000-foot view. If I'm only getting the 30,000-foot view, I don't care that much. So I'm a fan of the Yankees and Chelsea and U.S. Soccer. And I'm not looking for the opinions of people who only have 30,000-foot views on them. Now, if those people have been on the ground at their training facilities, if they've been in the Bronx, if they've been at Cobham, if they've been at U.S. Soccer headquarters or talked to Pochettino, who's taking over, or Emma Hayes, or players on those teams, then I'm interested. If they're just watching the games and they're commenting on it as somebody that watches the league broadly, I'm a lot less interested. Now, if it's Bill Belichick watching film, I'm interested. And I heard what he said about Levis's interception against the Bears. And that's good analysis from somebody who's been in the thick of it. And I think Lombardi's generally good, but I don't care. He claims Vrabel didn't like him and was happy to leave. I don't think it's Vrabel that didn't like him that much. I think Vrabel was okay with him. I think there were coaches on Vrabel's staff who didn't like him. And I think Vrabel was fine leaving after things dissolved the way they did. He didn't leave. He was fired. But I think Vrabel was okay being fired. This is nothing new. I've said this before. Based on how things were going with Rand being given power and him not thinking that highly of Rand and of Amy's decision-making. So I don't get why Michael Lombardi saying that is a big deal when it's been said here by somebody that covers the team on a regular basis, by more than one person who covers the team here on a regular basis. So I don't understand. Maybe you guys can explain it to me. It's probably not going to happen here in the chat, but send me an email. Send me an email or hit the voicemail line and tell me why, when Michael Lombardi says something that touches on stuff that's been said by me, by Teron Davenport, by Joe Rexroad, why then does it have some kind of power that it doesn't have when it's said by those of us that are clearly around these people and talk to them more frequently than Lombardi does? Now, help me understand that. Rashid doesn't know why Thomas Odukoya is not active on game day for special teams. Well, I mean, he made a great play chasing down somebody in the last preseason game. But does that guarantee you that Thomas Odukoya is a great blocker on the punt team? I don't know what kind of – I'm not going to pretend to know what kind of blocker Thomas Odukoya is. I would hope that he's better than Jack Gibbons, and I would hope that he's better than Julius Chestnut, but he doesn't have a great degree of special teams play in NFL games. In fact, he has zero experience playing in special teams in the NFL game. So could we expect that he would be better? Yes, but I don't think it's like earth-shatteringly baffling that he's not playing in those games, because we don't know. Now, I would say the same. Like, you're carrying 5 tight ends, you've scratched 2 of them for 2 games, and then this week, Brian Callahan told me that they're like developmental guys who are ready. We'll go to them if and when we feel the need or want to change things. But for the time being, they're developmental. Well, I don't know that Odekoya was getting claimed on waivers just because of that one super effort play. And you could have kept him, if you're developmental, you could have kept him on the practice squad for a free 17th spot, and then kept Hassan Haskins, who is a good special teams player. So I'm a little confused by that. Sam is answering my question. I'm family, he says. I give us what it is. National media tends to be a representation of the non-Titans viewpoint of the team. It's usually a negative viewpoint, and the fans get defensive. I think the fans in here certainly are smart enough to understand, care less about what these sorts of people think from afar. I think you have to consider proximity in this stuff more than you tend to do. And Robert's going a direction here that I generally don't like. Why not give Oliver some game reps over Burks or NWI and see what he could do? First off, don't say might could, say might. Because Oliver's not as good as Burks or NWI. Oliver is a very good third-team receiver in the preseason. And being a very good third-team wide receiver in the preseason does not translate to taking reps from NWI or Burks. Trust me, he's not as good. Might he develop into something? Yeah. What you need him to develop into first is somebody that registers to them as better than Mason Kinsey. That's the first step. Not being over Burks or NWI. So I just think that's way too much. I did see the video of the grab on Hopkins on the last play. Stuff's going to get missed. They had 4 shots there at the end. He missed Ridley on the first one. Hopkins got grabbed on the last one. You have 4 shots. Make a play on one of the 4 shots. Rashad feels like Jamal Adams is a waste of a roster spot if he's not playing. Well, what else are you going to do with the roster spot? He's going to play more. It's been 2 weeks. He played 2 snaps in his second game. You can't judge the value of his roster spot off of 2 games. Nick is surprised Hopkins wasn't more animated. I'm going to try to make a point of asking him about that. Hopkins is terrific at working the referees. You watch him during timeouts and stuff and pregame. He talks to refs a ton and is very, very skilled at it. So animated or not, the conversation after, I don't remember being big. And it could have been. I urge you to download the ZEN Sports app and make a bet on a game tonight. Use code TNPaul, and you can get yourself a free membership to paulkuharsky.com for a year. Preview of Jets Pats tonight. It's a quick turnaround, obviously, for the Jets, but I feel much better about the Jets personnel than I do about the Patriots. So I would lean on the Jets. I would lean on that Jets defense, though losing Johnson up front hurts. I haven't seen the Patriots much, so I'm interested in seeing that. ZEN Sports, my thanks again to Sinkers HQ for hosting me here. They sponsor a football show on Mondays, which you should be listening to or watching. 3 o'clock, where I discuss the previous day's Titans action with Braden Gall. You can also catch me Sundays from the press box after the game, which is always a very lively pod. I broadcast that on YouTube Sunday nights live, and then it'll drop on Monday mornings, audio on podcast platforms for you to listen to. And then I'm on Robbie and Rex Road for a segment Monday mornings. I'm 102.5 The Game, and Wednesday for about an hour and a half, starting generally at 7:30. So those are all the places you can catch me for great conversations like this one. You got to join paulkuharsky.com. Stuff there that is better than you're going to get anywhere else from me, from Mike Herndon, from Blake Bedingfield. I mentioned the Chad Brinker stuff coming up. Nobody else is going to have that. So be sure to join, and I send you away, as I always do, by urging you, begging you, pleading with you, don't block the box, but be sure, please, to lock your locks. Take care, everybody. I really appreciate you coming.